This talk is about the professional conversation. It is a gathering of keywords from several notes and talks I've been giving for the students of social pedagogy, grown ups who are studying to become social workers and workers in pedagogical fields with kids and kindergarten kids. And so, what is the professional conversation all about? I've got this very beautiful quote from Ko E. Løgstrup. He's a Danish philosopher and theologian who wrote a book about the spontaneous life expressions. And one of the things he says there is a widely known quote, at least in Denmark and a bit of Scandinavia. He says, Løgstrup, in every contact with another human, you have a part of that human's life in your hand. And so, to put it in a professional conversation, you will become, as a professional, very aware that whenever you are in contact with people, also in a professional manner, especially maybe in a professional manner, you have a part of their future and situation in your hand. And so, to be able to have this conversation, the professional conversation on a very good and high level is very important. And so, what do you have to look out for and think of when you want to go for a professional conversation? First of all, you have to know that it has a certain purpose. It's not a random conversation that can take you to the east and west. You are not sitting in a saloon talking to your friends and debating weather and politics and whatever you like to talk about. It is a conversation with a certain purpose. It could be a problem that has arisen, something we're going to do together, a situation that can arise or has arisen. And so you have to be ready for that kind of special conversation because it can be a difficult one as well. But basically, they are like put up into 6 different categories. One, it can be a meeting or a conversation to give some orientation on something that's going on. It can be an advisory conversation, or it can be a guiding conversation. Those are in the easy end, as we can say. It's a kind of, okay, here is some orientation of how things are going to be next week. We've made this and these changes in the plans. The advisory, it can be like, have you thought of going to this and that, and maybe you can apply here and so on. The guidance, it's like showing people the way to something that can make their situation better, or maybe show them who they can talk to in a case that they need help with. And so you are going to guide them pedagogically or let someone else guide them. And so you need, of course, a conversation and to sit in a proper place where there is quietness, and you can do that. The more difficult types are the 3 last ones. It's the confrontative conversation and the supporting conversation and the motivating conversation. And in my belief, the confrontative can be the most difficult one for most social workers, but for everyone who is in a professional situation. We know it from doctors and nurses and TV series where they have to confront a patient with a difficult message, tell them about an illness that happened, death or something. And so the supporting and motivating, they can go along the 3 others, and maybe this is just too detailed for some people. It's not necessary to detail it so much out, but they are basically also a kind of you aware of your role in that situation that people are in. So you can be there to motivate them. Maybe they feel sad, depressed, standstill situation, and you can also support. You can be there just to show your support and have this conversation to show the support for the struggle they're having or whatever they're dealing with out there, or the good things, the good results they have achieved. But the confrontative situation can be more difficult, and that's why I usually dig more into that with my students than I usually do with the other topics. But overall, the professional conversation is about a target, something you have to talk about that is related to the work. You do not interfere in people's private lives, and you do not talk about wind and weather and anything else but what's related to your work and their relation to you in that work. And so you are there with your professional capacity, you listen, you are present, and you try to be aware of what is gonna develop out of this situation. So you're always keeping that professional attitude of neutrality and attention, active listening, so showing the the other part that you respect and accept their position, even though you do not agree, and then use the terminology of your work field. This is like the basics of being a professional person in a professional conversation. And you have also to know that in that type of conversation, there is a power asymmetry. You are not equal. You can be you can be equal as persons, like in life or according to the law. You do not weigh more than the other person. We are all one under the law. But the power you have in this meeting is not equal. You have a power asymmetry because you're the one that had put up the meeting, made the decision for it, or even if they asked for the meeting, you're the one who is in charge and control and can make the start point and middle point and the ending of the conversation go in a certain direction. And you are in a position where you are called a professional. That means you have a responsibility acting accordingly. Type of talks you can have when you are having the advisory and guiding conversations is to help people understand that if you're going to advise somebody about something, you're going to tell them about the risks and the gains they can get out of certain situation or how to avoid them or get these gains. In a guidance conversation, you could be like showing the way to something they're not aware of. It can be a blanket or a place where people can apply for something or some certain kind of information that they didn't really know they could get to, and you help them get onto that. And the other type is that under these kind of conversations, as we said before, your role seems pretty easy and like one way positive, so there is not a lot to talk about. It's to inform and help and motivate and support. But the difficulty comes when you need to go inside the maybe difficult zone of the conversation that can be challenging, the difficult conversation, as they call it. And here I have a quote from the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard I usually let my students talk about before we go into that. And he says, to help is to find the person where he is and start there. And so, in any kind of difficult conversation, you will have to build a kind of trust and relation. They have to understand that you are there in a professional capacity to solve a problem, to help them out, to see their side of the story, and you are not there as a judge and attacker and police and someone who's going to punish them. This is not your way of being professional. And so you have to define the challenge from the beginning in that type of conversation and ask them to confirm that this is really what has happened or this is what we're going to talk about, and inform them about the difficulty in that conversation. So it's also your way of speaking, your body language, your tonality, your approach, where you are sitting, and maybe having a colleague with you would be a very assuring thing that we usually advise the workers to do, not to sit all alone. And if you are alone, to make sure that you can have it recorded or you can take notes so it become a finished resume afterwards. So that kind of conversation can be difficult because you don't really know how the other part will react. Maybe they will take it personally. Maybe you will do something, say something that they feel bad about, and they will feel stepped over, and maybe they will react in a difficult way. And mostly you have this kind of difficult conversations when something is not working out. There is a conflict, there is a lack of balance and satisfaction, something is not in the right place, or somebody you're working with is not having a good time. they are they are not comfortable, they are not easygoing, things are not right for them. And so you want to understand why and help and gain the trust and knowledge, so you can, in your professional capacity, look forward with the people you're talking to. Basically, I imagine a kid and his parents, but it can be a teenager and a friend. It can be a young man or woman studying. It can be a grown up. It can even be a colleague of yours who you are superior to and have to deal with and have responsibility for. And so there is actually no kind of way of doing this. You cannot just say go A, B, C, D, and the outcome will be X, Y, Z. It is something about planning, being responsible in the situation, clarifying the topic, showing the empathy, going slowly into that difficult topic, keeping eye on the reactions from the other side, and trying to get through with what you need to get through with. Like if a kid has done something out of order and you need to talk to the kids about it, and the parents about it, and everybody knows that maybe one of these two parents are alcoholic or has trouble with some other kind of reactions. And so it's difficult, and they will quickly react to you and maybe accuse you of being racist or being against them or anything they can do in that kind, because they are actually just protecting themselves and not really accepting that they are what you are saying about them, and that their kid is influenced by that and maybe reacting in anger and frustration because the mom is alcoholic and the dad is a thief or whatever it is that can be the trouble. And when you finish that conversation, after planning it, time, place, who's going to be there, and what we're going to talk about, and you give notice to the people you're going to invite, what is it is about shortly, and then you go about in the meeting explaining and using a very proper body language, proper language, and way of putting through what you want to say, being neutral, not being pro or contra anyone. You are just there in your professional capacity to solve a situation, a case. So you have the focus on the case, not the person. And so you go on from there. And when you finish, it's very important you have some kind of documentation, a resume or a paper sheet that tells what everybody has been discussing shortly and what kind of results that came out of it. Did we agree on something? Is there a follow-up meeting? Do we have to attend one place or another? Is there somebody we need to call in next time? What's going to be the follow-up of this meeting is very important to have documented on paper, and maybe ask the relevant part to say, would you sign this, that you agree that what is written here is true? They should not sign like a confession. It's not like confess that what I'm saying here about you is right. That's not it. It's more the way I describe the case and that you have responded like this and that. Do you recognize that this is what went on in the meeting? And they can sign or not, but you can at least give them the opportunity to. And if you feel that it will put them on edge, then don't wait, leave it for later, or just explain for them why you want to do this. That it is as much a guarantee for them as for you to document what has been spoken about here and what kind of agreement they have made. Yes. One topic related to the professional conversation is conflict avoidance. Shy in conflict shy. I have spoken about that in the first video about ordinary communication. And that can also give way to a new kind of trouble and conflicts. And that doesn't seem imaginable, but it's true. It can sometimes, because you as a professional can be too shy to address a problem, make that situation grow, or from it will arise another conflict. Like I've had these cases before where I've been both seeing, noticing, and also told that many cases actually in this relation, that the person in charge of a kind of a group of people does not attend when they need this person to attend on time. And so things can develop in different directions and nobody is addressing that problem. So what will happen? So every time it will be the same chaotic, everyone like in a bit of anarchy and confusion, just making plans, agreeing what to do today and how to deal with it. And then this person in charge, when shows up, everything is ready and they can go on, but everyone is frustrated and maybe a bit on edge and not really sure how things are going to go because the person who has the plans or should have been making the plans haven't really made them. And so what happens out of that is that when people are conflict shy, you will get the opposite result, because at one point or another somebody will react and maybe lash out very harshly in a meeting or outside it, or to the what can you say, administrative office leader or whoever is in charge on a higher level. They will just be criticizing that person and maybe be very personal in doing so, and they will be so frustrated that it will just create a bigger and more complex problem in the organization and the work. So to be conflict shy does not always solve the problem. Besides leaving you with a lot of workload you do not really know what to do about, and you have to solve time by time because you're always unsure whether this person will show up or not and will have prepared or not. And so you're always in a contingency. You know you're going to be ready as a group to deal with things because that person in charge does not do it. And at one time or another, as I said, someone will lash out or react or try to do something about it or confront that person, and things will get more complicated. So get out of that zone of being conflict shy all the time. Address the problem when it becomes a problem and becomes a challenge, and do it in a way where you still have space to do it. If you start addressing the problem before there is a lot of fire and trouble and anxiety and tension, then you have you have the time to do it right. You can go about it slowly. You can have small talks and conversations. You can find a way to speak to the people in charge, and so on and so on. You can dig behind the problem and the challenge that this person is having and try to understand why this is happening for that person, as we said in the other video about the way of using communication. But if you leave it go and then suddenly everything goes out of hand, then you are in a bigger trouble. So don't be too conflict shy. It's okay to challenge, uh, to say no, to address the situation and say, I cannot accept this, this is wrong, this is what I don't like, uh, the way this is done is maybe disturbing our work, and so on and so on. And do it under the right and proper, what can you say, meetings. Because you find the ways and the place to say it so it does not just become a discussion in the hallway, or just when you are a bit angry and going out of the room and just reacting, saying nothing happens good here, and you just lash out after the person. And so, not to avoid conflicts is just as important sometimes as avoiding them, because basically we try to avoid conflicts and just give in for the situation so we do not arise a lot of trouble. But then the things, hope, what can you say, stays in the same level of troublesomeness. Sometimes you fail completely, even though you try to orient yourself on taking up an issue that can be troubling. People react to it so harshly and maybe so unbalanced that things gets out of hand anyway. But then you can say to yourself, at least I tried, pointing out what is wrong with what is happening here. And so if people do not understand and relate and think you are making trouble out of something, especially if you're doing it in a professional and fine manner, of course, if you are one of these people who has forgotten all about the professional manners and just go about wanting the thing to be talked about, even though the others don't find it important and you have not enough arguments to put forward, you have to wait and be respectful and just see time through. Then things maybe will change and you will be proven right, or you can talk about it again when that thing happens and it becomes a pattern or whatever you are facing of challenge. But if you have your professional manners and you address the issue and people react like as if you are making an unnecessary earthquake out of something they have just agreed to turn a blind eye on, maybe either you don't belong to that place, or else you need help from a higher source to go in and prove you right. And sometimes you lose the battle altogether, and you have to find another way of getting back to the issue you have being addressing. So basically, to handle the professional communication is also to handle the conflicts in them, because a professional communication is mostly about the work and the work relation. It can be with the people you're working with, or your colleagues, the people you're working for, and the people you're working with. And so you can avoid, and you can explore, and you can bring attention to, or go and fight to win a conflict, or maybe show the importance of talking about it and doing it. And you have to sometimes see what is most proper. Nobody can give you a pre-answer on how you do that. A related issue here I will quickly go by is the documentation in your professional work, and that's just as important. There is different type of documentation, and different places have different rules. So you have to really know the rules of your workplace in that country or place you're belonging to. So because you can be in a place where they really need you to document everything, and some other places where you only make documentation on the most important issues, and some will accept a note, others would like a report, and so on. And so you have really to understand the rules of documentation that is in your workplace. There are two sides of ordinary documentation. That is the written one, and a kind of visual documentation, picture, video. And I'm not speaking in the negative sense here, it's the positive sense, like when you ride back home from a kindergarten and tell the parents how beautiful their girl or boy has been working with making food, or painting, or whatever they have been doing together. And so that's a written documentation. Maybe you also keep a note on each pupil and their activities. And so the other way, and maybe sometimes you do the both, is to take pictures, video, and also send it to the parents. Of course, everything with the parents accept, that the place is allowed to take pictures and videos, and not share it, of course, on social media or places they should not be shared, but just to show what is going on, like showing the kids in a certain kind of activity, being creative, being in a dance, working out, writing, talking, whatever they are doing. You can use both pictures and videos to do that. So the documentation is really good for you because it shows the progress of work. It also shows that things are well and fine. And sometimes they can also be important if things are not fine. So you go and make a written documentation on an issue that happened and could maybe need a follow-up later. And you might take a video or picture of whatever has been going on and say, this is the damage, and we're going to find out what happened, and then you go on from there. So it's a way of securing quality, and also securing kind of facts if you want to talk about difficult issues later. And I presented the law on that for the pupils, but this is not relevant here maybe, and everyone will have to find the laws for himself. As said, there are also another two type of documentation forms. The first one is the descriptory. It's like you are just keeping tags on what's going on, the development of someone. And the second one is the developing documentary. And that means, well, this kid is not really doing well with these others in the group. How do we go about making things better socially? That kid has trouble with the emotions and reactions. What kind of plan can we go about to make his or her reactions fit in the situation, or maybe become more accepted by the others? So you have these two types. The descriptory one, you go about just saying, look what they have been doing here, there, and maybe each kid can have this portfolio of work they have done that can be presented to the parents from time to time, or send over a secure app or whatever there is of communication portals that you have been using. The other one is for developing purposes, and those are the most that takes the attention of the personnel, because they are working with humans under development, and their development is not equal, and you have to deal with that, and it's a long process, complicated, because sometimes there can be setbacks. We have had a lot of these cases where kids are in a development mood and then they suddenly react to something. We don't understand why, so we have to first understand and make the proper plans and go on trying to work it out. That's the Smite model again, that lady wanted the older woman to talk about at home with her Fisher husband. And so you have to make way for preparing for betterment of that person you're working with. That's part of your professional work. Sometimes you need a whole report on maybe 2 years development or what happened, or you are making a summary of the whole process. Sometimes you need an evaluating document or a note to say, well, let's evaluate. We have just been through 3 weeks with this program, and let's see how it went. And this is the documentation needed, and this is the quotes of this and that person that have been dealing with this, and so we sum up the results of what we have been doing. And then finally you have a meeting documentation sheet. So every time you have an important meeting, or maybe every time you have a meeting per se, you go and make a kind of summary, so you have something to go back to. You make an archive, so you can go back and see what did we agree on this and that meeting. And in many cultures they don't do that, they keep it just oral, and it's easier, and then you have to remember maybe 6 months later what was it they agreed on. And so they think they all will remember, but they don't, and maybe some remember it differently from how it was at that point, and that can also be a potential tension and what can you say, communicative disturbance in that. You have also observation as documentation, and that's also a kit you have to be able to learn how to use, where you go and observe a situation or a kid or a person for over a long period or a short period. And you do that by being neutral and keep out, you're just a camera, keep out of the interaction. The other side is you are interacting with the one you're observing. So you have the interaction observance, and you have the one-sided camera-like observant. So it's like you are a video camera recording everything, looking at everything, but is not interacting directly. You are passive in that field. You're like looking into a laboratory, or what can you observing something out of your reach. On the other side, the observation is also interactive, or it can be both. You can start with one and then go over to the other, because that's what makes more sense, and that can differ from place to place. And so I think we got through different type of documentation and observation as well. And I have here also a note about the report, how it should be formulated, how the meeting reference should be made, note, and how you make an evaluation note as well. And I train the pupils in writing these and making examples out of cases, and that they have had these meetings, and so they had to write one example of each to train how to do so. And we looked at them together, and we could see differences in the way the students understood this. That's why training is also practically important. It's not important just to listen to a speech like this. This is an introduction to some keywords, but you will learn it when you practice it. That's why it's called that kind of practice school, where you go and practice things so you become professional and able to use them correctly. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the day. Hope you got something out of this.